Welcome back to Newsmaker Live. I'm Clinton Reynolds, and with us this evening for the second part is Nurse Julia Joseph. She's the Assistant Principal Nursing Officer, Deputy, and we have also the Deputy Epidemiologist and the Data Collection Coordinator for the Behavior Risk Factor Survey. And they've been trying to run my live during the break. Must let you know. Let's go to the survey though. Let's go to that very important survey that we came here to discuss. What is the survey all about? We touched on it a bit, but in terms of its implementation and the conduct, what can we expect, and how soon can we expect that survey to be conducted? Okay.
We are basically using what is called the STEPS methodology. It was developed by WHO PAHO, and it has been used and implemented in a number of countries in Africa, in Europe, and in Latin America and the Caribbean. Basically what it is, it has 3 steps. The first step is actually the questionnaire part. Now, we are not going to be using paper questionnaires. When the interviewer comes to your house, they would be having what we call PDAs. So the first step is basically we're going to be getting demographic data. We would be asking you some questions about family history. There would also be questions on tobacco smoking, alcohol use, dietary practices, and then also be some questions on physical activity. The second component of it is basically where we're doing what we call some measurements. And the measurements would include blood pressure, height, weight, waist, and hip circumference. And the final step is where we're actually going to be doing what we call biochemical measurements. So we would be actually testing 50% of our sample size. Now, we would be using a sample size of 5,424 persons. Now, 50% of that sample size would be chosen to actually do the biochemical measurements, and that would include testing for blood glucose level and cholesterol.
Interesting. Now, I mean, how do you go about doing the survey, and what sample size are you targeting?
Okay, like I said, the sample size is 5,424. What we've done is, for us at the Ministry of Health, the country is divided into basically 9 health regions. So we used our health regions, but the population that we use is based on the 2010 census. So we used a scientific method, came up with our sample size, and we would be, everybody, the 5,424 persons, would have to take part in step 1 and step 2, okay, which would be the administration of the questionnaire and the physical measurements. And just 50% of that sample size would be eligible to take part in the biochemical measures. And so the biochemical measures would take place at the health facility, at your health center, and the other parts of the questionnaire would be administered at the participant's house.
Now, in terms of surveys, have you done those or similar surveys in the past?
This STEP survey is actually the first survey, the first time we're conducting this survey in St. Lucia. And the targets, the age group is from 25 to 64 years. And it will run for a period of 8 to 10 weeks. But as we said, it's the first of its kind, and we're asking people to take advantage of it, because as Nurse Sherry said, you will not just be being they will not just ask you about the they'll not just ask questions, but you will have the benefits of having some of your measures done, and particularly your blood glucose and cholesterol.
But some people,
free of charge.
But some people would be uncomfortable doing that. I would imagine, you know, probably even I would be, sort of, because you know I'm afraid of doctors and medical stuff. You can only see what you test when you test it. So if you don't know it's there, and I mean, and some people have that mentality. You know, they're afraid to go to doctors. They don't want to know. They don't want you to test because they're afraid of what you might tell them after the test. How do you work around that? How do you guard against that?
Well, basically, the interviewers have gone through a week of training. We had persons come from the WHO office in Geneva, the PAHO office in Barbados, and we also had persons from the Caribbean Epidemiology Center in Trinidad come to train our interviewers. And our interviewers are all healthcare workers. They work in the healthcare system, and a lot of them are familiar with the various communities. So they have been trained to try to convince the participant that is selected. Because what is going to happen, like Nurse Joseph said, is an adult household survey, and so persons between the from the age of 25 to 64 are eligible. But if I come to your house and there are 5 of you who live in that household, it's just not the person who wants to participate will participate. There's a scientific method that we use called the Kish method to actually select the participant who gets to participate. And so the interviewer will now have to use his or her skills and explain to you what the survey is about. Now, for those persons who actually get to take part in the biochemical part of it, I mean, it's not, we're not doing like full screening for everybody, but it also gives us the opportunity now to identify. We can actually pick up persons who actually have chronic non-communicable diseases. And as you know, they say that it has been said that, for example, hypertension is a silent killer, and you may have persons walking around with blood pressure levels that are way above the normal limits, and they may not be feeling the headache, or they may not be feeling the left shoulder pain or anything like that. But we might be able to pick up these people, and we get the chance to actually refer them. So there's an added advantage to actually participating in the survey. The other thing is you also get feedback. So whether or not you get up to from steps 1 to step 2, we give you feedback, because you have to realize that in the physical measurements we would be using height, weight, etc. to actually calculate body mass index, and that is an indication for us as to if you're at risk of getting stuff like metabolic syndrome, etc. And so, I mean, you would get feedback, and there's actually a form, one of the forms for the survey that actually said participant feedback. So we would be giving you feedback, so you would know. We would not be just taking your measurements and at the end of the day say nothing to you and go back with it. We would actually be giving you feedback, and there are persons who would require referrals, and that would also be happening during the survey. So there's an added advantage to actually participating in the survey.
We have a call on the line. Go ahead, caller. Please make your contribution. Good evening. Are you there? Okay, I think we lost. Okay, go ahead, caller, please. All right, I think we lost that caller, but you have some very important dates that I'm sure that you want to share. The launch of this program was March 1st. You have a pilot coming up on the 9th. Before you talk about these events, we have a call on the line. Please go ahead with your contribution, caller.
Hello.
Hi.
Good night. I called the program to find out with various callers, persons on the show you have there. I am a person who would eat rice raw, uncooked. Would that have some kind of, would that give me any problems like with my kidneys? That's what I like to know. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I don't know if you can answer that question. It would have been better for our previous guests. So probably we can ask them that, and if we get a break, we can come back and respond to it. But let's continue our discussion on the behavior risk factor survey. And just before we go to break, just discuss some of the dates you have. The pilot, which is March 9th, and also the community implementation, which will begin on March 12th and will run for 8 to 10 weeks. Give us a little synopsis on that before we take our next break.
Okay. Our health workers, as we said, they were trained, and to ensure that they have really mastered the skills, we will be having a pilot on the 9th, which is Friday. The pilots will not be within the community, but it will be with workers at the Ministry of Health building. So persons will be interviewed at their workplace, and after which we will be implementing the survey on Monday, the 12th of March. And as we said, it will run over a period of 8 to 10 weeks, so which will bring us up to the mid-May 2012.
I'm sure we have a lot more to discuss about the behavior risk factor survey, but we'll take a short break right now. When we come back, we'll continue to take your calls and discuss this very important survey on Newsmaker Live. Stay with us.